Don't let the internet, you know, make you feel like you into thinking that everybody is a movie star except you, and everybody is working on 50 shows except you or whatever. Yeah, you got to keep making stuff. I mean, because ultimately at the end of the day, the way that the business is going from my limited perspective is that everything is kind of narrowing, and it feels like just being good at one thing seems to be less and less of like a thing anymore.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Deli Boys is so fun. I adore a really good mix of belly laughs and bloodshed, and I feel like this show delivers.
Yeah.
Great way of putting it.
So I'm interested, from whoever wants to take this question, what do you feel makes this sort of horror comedy mix work so well on a show like Deli Boys?
I think in this show, I think you get like the extremes work, because for the comedy to hit super hard, you need the violence and all of that gore to also be in an extreme. Because if you did it too realistic, which we kind of had that with that the end of episode 1 where Lucky Auntie shoots a dude, and they were kind of debating on what amount of just crazy blood they were going to have. And initially they wanted to be like, oh, maybe we should stay more realistic. But in the effect of going like full Tarantino, I think you then put the show in a place where you're like, oh, we're in crazy town here. And that then allows you to then take comedy into crazy town as well. And then when you have the moments where you're grounding it, and you have like the family moments, they all kind of have their place in that. And I think that the extremes kind of lift everything up.
And I also, to back on what Asif said, it is kind of placing the expected beats with very unexpected ones right next to it. And I think that's the base of the comedy of the show, but also, again, not only in the last scene that Asif was talking about, where I shoot the dude and there's a egregious amount of blood that is spattered every single where, like
A community
levels.
amount, yeah.
Yes. It's the golf ball on Baba's
Mhm.
head, and the blood that just spurts out like a hose from his forehead. Like all those start setting, even for us, like it started setting a tone for us. Like it's so hard to understand a tone of a comedy until we get these visual cues, and it helped us, and it helps the audience along to say, okay, this is a show that we're doing.
Yeah, it's like a unexpected genre switch up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every once in a while that happens, and it just like pulls you out of the moment with like a what is going on kind of feeling, Yeah.
And if you don't go to those extremes, I feel like it just then becomes a completely different show, and then the performances become completely different. And so yeah, for the type of comedy that Abdullah, the creator of the show, and Michelle and the rest of the team wanted to make, in order for it to live, for the jokes that they were trying to do to hit as hard as they do, you needed to live in a place where everything was insane.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. Did you two know that coming into the show? Like, I didn't.
I figured that from reading the pilot, I felt like what they were trying to go for was more of like a Righteous Gemstones-y type of thing, where even in that show, when they do violence, it is like the most egregious, insane kind of thing.
Yeah. It's heavy. But I do feel like between the pilot and the rest of the season, the tone kind of changed. I feel like it got, I mean, I don't know. The pilot was amazing, and I feel like it just got funnier as the season went on.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's also an effect of them doing the pilot. Pilot is kind of just an insane experiment type thing.
And then waiting for us for the rest.
Waiting for us. And then sitting there and like looking at it and being like, okay, what is this? What do we have here? What's the best version of, what's the most effective version of this? And then going in and writing the rest of the season to each of our strengths and to the story they're trying to do.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, you guys talking a little bit about that tension between these two genres. I feel like as characters, you have that between yourselves as well. Like Asif, you're the
Mm.
straight guy. Poorna, you're this like larger than life badass. Sagar, you're like the wild card. You know, you bring the chaos
I
as
mean, he showed up with the
Raj.
new
So
haircut. I
I'm
mean, this is real wild card behavior. Yeah.
It's unexpected.
we're taking the characters into real life, but you know, I'm curious. I want to hear a little bit about your outside inspirations for these characters. Are there any films or TV, even books, shows, real life people that you look to bring Mir, Raj, and Lucky to life?
Saagar, go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of took inspiration from, I have two brothers. I'm a middle of three. I kind of took inspiration from all three of us, plus Abdullah. You know,
Mm.
like my older brother, he'd hate that I would say this, but he's a little more aloof than my younger brother and I. We're a little more like just aware of our surroundings, and you know, we pay more attention to what's going on around us. And then I took a lot of inspiration from Abdullah, you know, because Abdullah, when he wrote the script, he originally wrote it for himself, but then he decided to focus more on the writing and the producing, which is why it opened up the role and how I got it. But because I knew that he wrote it for himself, I just kind of paid attention to like a lot of his mannerisms and his like his heightened passion about things that aren't necessarily super important, but he believes strongly in them. So yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I very often in how I work is I'll always look for a documentary to ground me. I'll definitely look at TV shows and other visual references, but it's always like a documentary. And I went through the gamut. I looked at very, very strong women. I looked at Margaret Thatcher and Indira Gandhi. I looked at a bunch of, I forgot her name, whoever Griselda was based on. I looked at, gangster called Fool and Davy, and nothing
Mm.
was hitting. And then I landed on the Housewives of Orange County for Lucky and inspiration, and a lot of my mannerisms and the overtopness is literally like right off the screen from them.
Mine was a lot of I watch a lot of mob things, but mob things are pretty straightforward, and this character kind of needed to be funny also. And what I kept coming back to was uh, Jason Bateman in Arrested Development. This is a great blend
Oh,
of
Mm.
being able to be funny, finding your pockets, but then also being able to tee people up and letting them, do what they
Right.
need to do while you sort of are, the voice of kind of like the audience in a way of just like, this is insane. And I watched
Mm.
that. I rewatched Arrested Development, and then I also watched Ozark because I hadn't seen that either. And even in Ozark, there's moments of
oh,
really funny stuff in
oh.
there. And so that was sort of uh my guiding light
That's
there.
a great reference. I didn't know,
Yeah.
Asif. That makes perfect sense. He's a
Yeah, it
Mhm.
really does. Now that you mention it, and you're totally right. Ozark definitely has those moments where he is able to
Yeah.
bring his
Yeah.
comedy into the picture, and
yeah,
it's a really good mix.
yeah.
I know that you all were able to improv on set as well. So I'm curious, obviously this is backstage, it's an actor audience. Beyond the yes and, what's your number one personal rule about
Zip zap zop.
improving?
That's our number one, I think.
For what?
Zip, zap,
Zip
stop.
zap zap.
Stop, stop.
Sorry, you go ahead. What do you think?
Um, this is tough. Because yes and is such a basic rule, right?
Yeah.
That's why I was
I
like,
love,
beyond that.
yeah, I like if this is true, what else is true?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, like if Mir likes his coffee in the morning and going to the gym right after and playing golf right after that, like, you know, what other like I don't know, super like that's an early rise
Yeah.
person, clearly, right? What else does this person like, and how can you implement that into who your character is?
Yeah, for me, it was just a lot of open exploration. It just felt like once you get what's on the page, a lot of it was um, to Sagar's point of like, okay, what else can we add to this? But also a lot of it is, who are you in
No,
the
you
scene?
get you find your own answer, dude. You find your
That's
own
right.
answer.
Answer. Your boy fills in the blanks himself. But it's also who you're playing with. Different improvisers have different strengths and different things that they lean to more or less. And having very strong comedic performers on the show definitely helps a ton. But yeah, a lot of it was just as far as improv was just like, hey, I'm just gonna try stuff, and then it's either gonna work or it's not. You're gonna do a bunch of takes. It's either gonna work or it's not, and they'll let you know, kind of thing. Um, uh, but yeah, it was always in the interest of like we're starting in a real place and we have to come back to the place that's on the page. But how many different
Hmm.
sort of avenues or as a stand up, how many tags can we hit before we have to come back to where we're at?
What do you mean by that? What do you how many
Tags in stand
tags? What
up
is
is
that?
like if you're doing a joke and then you have just like a bunch of other you hit the premise is sort of like the idea of the joke. This is now a joke 101 class. So when you do like the premise of the joke and then you hit the punchline, and then each
Yeah.
subsequent funny thing you say afterwards that stays on that topic is considered a tag.
So it's like beating the hell out of the
Yes,
game.
yes, 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 yes.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
So but a lot of our show was super visual, and I think having that sort of through line of a story made it a little bit different than if you're just doing like a straight up comedy. If you're doing like uh yeah, straight up comedy, then it's just like how many of these things can we beat? But then when you're in a situation where like, well, there's a whole storyline going in here, you can't really deviate to an insane amount, you know?
For me, once I figured out the tone and it I got permission to try being a little slapsticky, which is the first time I've ever gotten that on a set. Then I started small and then ended up being ridiculous. But it took all the 10 episodes to build. So in the first episode, I'm telling you, I didn't really understand the tone for a very long time. And then someone during rehearsals for the pilot said, righteous
Yeah,
gemstones, and that unlocked so much possibility in my head because that's
yeah,
absurd. um and I remember a very distinct moment. It was in the pilot, we were being raided, and we were all like had these stacks of papers, and the FBI came in, and my thought was, okay, what is the most inefficient, absurd way of getting rid of evidence? So I was like, I'm going to crunch it up and make someone eat it. He's like, what? I was like, eat it. And he was like, sure. So like, as soon as we did that thing and nobody said anything, I was like, okay, let's see where this is going. So it was actually a lot of fun in my first time at it.
I do feel like for Asif and I,
Yeah.
if we tried to improvise anything in the first like 2 or 3 episodes, we'd kind of get a note like, hey, let's like, not
You
deviate.
think you would?
And then yeah, I feel like we got noted to like stick as close to the script as possible, but I feel like there was a moment, maybe it was episode 3 or episode 4, where they stopped saying anything to us and they
The
allowed.
adults left the
well,
building by
Yeah, yeah,
episode
yeah.
I also think that is
2 on.
also like uh, a part of it is due to the fact that they're telling a connected story, and I felt like
Sure,
maybe
Yeah.
yeah.
initially they were kind of a little worried about like we got to keep the train on the tracks because this is all
Yeah, yeah.
connected and telling a larger thing. That if we go too off the rails, which I love to do, I famously love going off the
Yeah,
rails,
love.
and
We famously rails
and so like
all the
you can't get so crazy that we kind of lose where the story is going. So I think in the effort
Mhm.
of protecting that,
yeah.
that may have been it. But then around like episode 3, I think there was an understanding and
I also
trust.
feel like it's a thing of like developing
Yeah,
trust, right?
yeah,
Like
Totally.
you and I are new to lead a show like
hmm
this, and Poorna is a fucking
yeah,
legend, a
yeah,
star. You know,
No.
nobody can tell
Mhm.
her, Poorna, you can't do
can't tell
this.
Poorna
Everybody's
shit.
gonna be like, Poorna, yes, yes, more,
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
You're making
We're
this
just
really
making her
hard
sound like
for
a
us.
complete asshole on set.
I know. Well,
No, she's just such a pro that she doesn't mess up. You know, she can do
That
no
is
wrong.
true. She very
so
rarely
not true.
fucks up.
Well, let's
Yeah.
move. Let's answer. Okay.
Poorna, you gotta soak it up, you know? You
I
gotta
will.
take
These
the
people
flowers when
are
they're
the
given.
best. I'm telling you, they're the best.
Take the flowers when they come, okay?
True. I love you guys.
I want to talk a little bit about the fandom, the Deli Boys fandom. What have you learned about your characters from an avid watcher, or is there anything that surprised you about their reception when coming, face to face with a fan?
I was very surprised at the demographics that are enjoying our show. I feel like we
Yeah.
were really
Who?
concerned about they were really concerned about, is it just going to be like young kids that are going to be into the show? And I feel like overwhelmingly the people that I've met have been like young people, but it's overwhelmingly been like, this is one of the only shows I watch with my parents. And
What?
yes, so
It's-
many of
it's
them.
What?
Yes. Like so many Desi people come to my shows with their kids being like, it's the only show I can watch with my kids. And we both wanted to come see you.
There has been a large amount of older white
too.
women that have
What?
Yeah.
yeah. And like shockingly, right? I'm like, oh my god, you watch Daily Boys? That's
Does it reveal anything about your character for you? Is it like, oh, I didn't know Raj was so appealing to older white women?
I don't think it's Raj. I think it's Lucky.
Yeah. A lot of it is lucky.
appealing to all.
And we have that
ranges
on
of
record. Now we have
ages
that on record.
and genders.
But yeah, I
Oh,
think
God.
for my character personally, I mean, I think again, they're just looking at the show as a whole. I don't think in particular there is. I think Poorna's character really inspires women, particularly. I think every time I meet somebody, they're like, "Oh my god!" And then Lucky Andy's like the best, and so that kind of draws in, I think, the moms to be like, "Oh, okay," who would normally not want to watch a movie that the trailer is just pure violence and stuff. But they go like, oh, but I know her and she's great. And then they watch her and they go, oh, this is very cool. Like, it's funny what people will adjust their taste on. Like, if Poorna's character was a dude, I guarantee you, like, the amount of women watch the show, it wouldn't be as high. But I think they're just,
Completely
it's seeing
agree.
yourself in a character where like, oh, okay, yeah, this is actually pretty awesome. Yeah, so for me it's like I feel like a lot of people will be like, yeah, you remind me of like my annoying cousin. I look like everyone's cousin, so they just go like, you remind me of my annoying cousin. And then Saagar has this whole thing going on TikTok where the ladies are going crazy. Rihanna,
It's really weird.
he
It's
keeps trying to cut
really-
his hair, but it's him.
They're going.
Like, how are you adjusting?
There's
to
a
the
lot of
attention?
women going meow, meow, meow.
Yeah, it's
And just a
weird.
picture of Sagar in the background, and it's quite
It's
hilarious.
amazing. It's amazing. Too crazy outside.
When you start getting a lot of attention, part of what every actor hopes eventually is that they get this level of attention.
My landlord is nicer to me.
Oh hell yeah!
yeah.
Must be
Get
that
them landlord
popcorn.
charge.
She sees our big billboard heads in the garage.
And she's like, you can, these guys can pay rent for a couple more months. Oh, wow. They're
It's gonna
staying.
be really nice to them.
Yeah. It's funny.
I mean, so we're talking about, obviously the show's been super successful. You're getting your TikTok trends, Sagar, I'm sure. People are, it's really blowing up. But this industry can be, super feast or famine. And you all have, I'm sure, had your experience on both sides of that spectrum. And I'm curious, what sort of kept you going during those leaner times? What advice do you have for actors who are in those leaner times now, to kind of keep them ticking over? So
I just, it's so fresh in my mind because I had this conversation yesterday by a very, very accomplished actress. We both kind of started she may be at it for a little longer, but she's super talented, super accomplished. And she's like, fuck, nothing is coming my way and my mortgage is due and I'm fucking petrified. And and the only advice I could give her is, I was like, when I hear you talk, it's a lot of like, I'm here, I'm in this position, I don't know what to do, I've done all the work, I've done everything, I've proved everyone, why am I in this position? And I get it. And the only thing I said is, you have to understand that we are all in this position. So it's not your trajectory, it's not your talent, it's not you being underestimated. We're all in that same path where we can be on a very, very lauded show, and the next minute be completely invisible and rendered, just nothing. It is, the visibility, the opportunities for us are still very limited. When they hit those harder times, to understand that it's all of us, it's not just them, it's all of us going through it, and all of us are trying to get out of it, all of us are trying to create more roles and more representation and more opportunities. I mean, there's all these auditions now. I don't know, Sagar and Asif, you're noticing there's so many roles for younger kids, right? For
Mhm.
like women in their teens and 20s and early 30s. And I didn't like, there was no role on the map when I was, that age. So things are changing. It's just changing a little slower than we'd like it to.
Yeah, I would tell them like, hang tight, keep doing what you're doing. Be stubborn. Keep like writing your ideas down and working on your side projects that you want to do. Keep your job, and just hang tight. It'll be fine, or it won't, and then we're all fucked. But yeah, just patience and passion.
Mm.
Yeah.
Patience and
I
passion.
I
I
would
love
say get
that.
into cryptocurrencies. You want to get into Bitcoin. You want to get into Trump.
It's a
You
good
got to get
time.
into Trump coin now. You got to get into Trump coin now. You got to
Yeah,
buy low.
good time.
Yeah,
Buy the dip.
yeah, 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 yeah. I'll send you guys an email. I would say,
Also, the financial
yeah.
advisor.
Yeah. It's like a forex
Add
thing.
that to the
Yeah, I have
resume.
this Tupperware business. You guys got to get invited. You guys got to get 6 of your friends doing it. We can all get rich. Um, I would say to both of uh, my amazing co-stars' points, I would say, yeah, know that it's not you. Don't let the internet, um, you know, make you feel like you into thinking that everybody is a movie star except you, and everybody is working on 50 shows except you or whatever. Yeah, you got to keep making stuff. I mean, because ultimately at the end of the day, the way that the business is going from my limited perspective is that everything is kind of narrowing, and it feels like just being good at one thing seems to be less and less of like a thing anymore. I do stand up and stuff, and a lot of my friends do that. It's just like it seems like keeping yourself active by doing other things. Like, okay, you may not be in a show now, but that's not keeping you from like, workshopping things, maybe writing a play, performing stuff. Like,
On the
yeah,
class.
go to class. Like, you
Yeah.
can still make stuff and do stuff, and that will help you do a lot of things. It'll help you keep your skill set sharp. But also, which is also very important, is like it helps you keep and like maintain community, which is very important in this kind of business where it's so much of it is predicated on this feeling of like loneliness of like you're just the only one and nothing's happening to you. But if you have people that you're with and that you're working on stuff with, and because it is like if you're doing it seriously, it is going to be a career, which is like your whole life. So you have to plan for that length of time of like, okay, what are your hobbies? What are you working on? What's going on? Are you writing stuff? Are you making stuff? Who are the people that you're sort of building with, and finding something outside of entertainment that you like to do also. You got to have some sort of life outside of this, because if your whole life is just this, you're going to be really unhappy, really, really unhappy, because it is like, people work and then they don't work. And that's just how the business works. You work on a thing and
Yeah.
then you may not work for a
Yeah.
long time and then you will work. And so I would say explore all of the things that seem overwhelming, like, oh, social media and this and whatever, instead of looking at them like, oh my God, these are like things lording over me. You could also look at them like, oh, maybe these are places I could experiment on. because you have nothing to lose. You might as well experiment and try things and put stuff up and see what happens. But yeah, it is a weird time. But yeah, you gotta keep busy and keep the faith.